Welcome to the Big Four Accounting Firms podcast, brought to you by big4accountingfirms.com and the Big Four Accounting Firms YouTube channel. Make sure to visit our website and subscribe to our YouTube channel. In today's podcast, I wanted to discuss getting laid off because during this whole coronavirus pandemic, there's been a lot of talk about Big Four layoffs and Big Four firms around the world are laying people off. I wanted to go through some signs of potential layoffs in your group or your firm. And the first sign that you could get laid off or you're about to get laid off is that your firm or the economy is doing bad. It is hard to get laid off from the Big Four accounting firms in a typical year. Trust me, I've seen some terrible employees over the years that kept their job. They even got poor performance ratings, and year after year, the firm kept them around. Who knows why? Some of the times these people are just looked over by other people. But when the economy's bad, everybody's likely to get laid off, or everybody can be laid off. And the poor performers are definitely laid off then. So that's the first sign. And now let's go to the second sign that you are about to get laid off. In a normal year, you can be laid off if your group is doing bad or your group lost a major client. And if the economy isn't doing too bad, then you can still get laid off if your group is doing bad or you lost a major client in a smaller office or a group. For example, a lot of times partners will blame staff and they'll lay them off when the partners can't sell work and the group's doing bad. Maybe it's a new group and they were doing well initially, but then they just can't sell their work or their work becomes obsolete because government regulations get reduced over time. I've seen this happen many times in my experience, and it becomes really toxic. The partners start blaming other people, and partners are political, so they're able to keep their jobs, but eventually they lay off people. Alternatively, groups can lose a major client. There's huge companies out there that can support a group in the Big Four accounting firms easily. Just like one client, they could have one big client and then a bunch of smaller clients. But if they lose that big client, then they can't support all the people in their group and people will get laid off. Moving on to the next sign. Third sign that you might be getting laid off is that no one is talking to you. If the people that typically give you work go silent, or if your client's not talking to you anymore, then potentially you could be laid off. These are all signs that you could be laid off. If you aren't connected and staying busy, then it makes it easy for a firm to fire you. The fourth sign that you might be getting laid off is that your utilization is going down. Your utilization is the amount of billable hours over your total hours. You might be thinking that the coronavirus is a good reason to have a slow time period and that the accounting firms will look over it. Well, it isn't. The firms typically mandate that you have to have a certain utilization, and they might say that they don't care for a little bit, but unless that is documented somewhere, then you shouldn't believe it. You need some solid backup for why your utilization is low. You also need to document that you've actively tried searching for additional work. And even if you're not worried about it from that perspective, you should be worried about it from your development. If you aren't learning anything, then you are falling behind others in your career. And you need to constantly develop, otherwise you could be laid off, or you might not progress in your career. You might not get promoted, or you might not be able to find another job if you do get laid off. You should be actively looking for work. Or the fifth sign that you might be getting laid off is you aren't receiving many invites to calls or meetings anymore. Similar to the previous points, if you aren't receiving invites anymore, then you might be on track to being let go. The bread and butter of the most Big Four accountants' days are meeting invites. If your calendar and inbox are recently empty, then that isn't a good sign. The sixth sign that you might be getting laid off is that HR is talking to you more and more. You don't ever want a bunch of questions from HR, and you don't want any calls from them either. HR always does the dirty work for the partners in the Big Four accounting firms. And they start off calling, trying to be real nice and asking you about your day and how work is going. But they usually just want you to book more time in their forecast software, or they're wondering why your utilization is low. And they've been directed to do this by partners or other senior members of the Big Four accounting firms. So try to avoid HR, do whatever they say, and try to make them happy. But if you're getting more and more calls from them, then something's wrong. HR, contrary to movies and things you hear, they might be nice people personally, but they do the dirty work of the firm. They're looking out for the company that they work for. They're not looking out for you. Even though they might be nice people, often the people who work in HR think they're going to be doing personal counseling or therapy sessions, but all they really do is just document performance and document reasons to lay people off, or it's just really looking out for the partners. They're not looking out for you. The seventh sign you might be getting laid off soon is a reason that you would know if you're doing it. And this is you are dodging work. And these people know who they are because a lot of people do this. They think they're going to outsmart the system, and it just doesn't work. If you start dodging work that is available and all the previous mentioned stuff is happening to you, then you're most likely going to lose your job. If your workload is low, then you should start volunteering for stuff. Don't dodge everything. And people might think this is obvious, but when you work for the Big Four accounting firms, there's plenty of people that dodge work. And during good times, that might be okay. Trust me, like there's a lot of people that dodge work to get away with it. They say they have a family or whatever, and they might have a family. That might be true, but and the utilization is low and they get away with it. But during the downtime, those people are going to get laid off. And a lot of times people dodge work for good reasons. You might dodge work because it's a terrible client. Trust me, the Big Four have plenty of terrible clients to go around, and people dodge this type of work all the time. But if all those previous things are happening in your firm or happening to you and you're dodging work, it's not looking too good for you, buddy. Okay, the eighth sign you might be getting laid off soon is you haven't received a performance review in a while. If you send out a request to your team members for feedback and nothing has come back, there's a chance that they are debating on how to write you up for a bad review. And they could also be talking to HR in order to document how to provide you with feedback so that they can document how they're going to get rid of you. There could be valid reasons too for why you aren't getting performance feedback. It could be because the people are busy, but if it's been a really long time and you followed up and people still aren't giving you feedback, this could be a bad reason. And if the person you're trying to get feedback from has given other people around you feedback, that's even worse. A lot of times people will delay feedback because it's not going to be good. And if you're receiving bad feedback during these times, it's more likely that you're going to get laid off. Now, these things aren't the end of the world. In order to work against all these previous signs that I've mentioned, you need to stay busy and you need to stay connected to the people around you. If your group isn't busy, then find another that is. And if you don't want to do any of this, or you have run into a dead end, then you better start searching for another job. So those are signs I could think of that you might be getting laid off soon. If any of these things are happening to you, then you need to start focusing on what you're going to do and looking out for yourself. Make sure to subscribe to this podcast and our YouTube channel to get similar content in the future. Thanks for listening.